Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. In the last 3 months, I've been looking for a project management system specific for architects to help me track projects, financials, and overall internal coordination of progress and staffing. So after months of research, reading, and testing multiple options, I found Monograph. And let me clarify, this is not an advertisement or referral incentive for me to talk about this specific product. It was just a good fit, and I want to share it. What I can tell you is that besides Monograph being everything I was looking for, what impressed me the most is that the founder and CEO personally spent many hours with me via Zoom, showing me the product and answering any questions I have, even before I made a decision to purchase. He was always clear, honest, and available. His name is Robert Yuen, the guest of today's episode. Robert is a trained architect and serial entrepreneur, expert in designing software solutions that facilitate architects and designers deliver the power of design. I felt very aligned with Robert's work ethic and way of thinking. The son of immigrants from southern China, Robert has taken any opportunity presented to him and took it to the next level. I'm inspired and motivated by his personal story and business ventures, and hope you feel the same. This is my conversation with Robert. Hey Robert, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Robert, as an architect, you have followed a non-traditional path of professional development, combining technology, business, and design. What do you think is the most undervalued asset architects and designers bring to business and entrepreneurship?
Wow, that's a really good question. If I were to be put on the spot right now and answer that, I think architects have a really unique ability to zoom in and out very quickly, to go as close to the detail as possible, and then zoom all the way out and look at like the problem holistically.
Yeah.
That's a characteristic that I think only architects can do extraordinarily well and can actually be applied to many different circumstances other than building.
Yeah, interesting, because it's very common to know and see that a lot of architects are not good business persons. And it's interesting that we have these skills, but somehow we don't see how to connect the dots and apply it to a different type of application when it comes to business.
Yeah, I would argue, I think most architects are actually not that bad in business. I think you have to give yourself a little bit more credit. If you are a business owner and you have you're running a 5-person practice, a 10-person practice, everyone's being paid, everyone's being worked, like you have to give yourself also somewhat credit. Like the business is going.
Sure.
Is it optimized to grow a little bit faster? Is it optimized to run a little bit smoother? Probably not, but that's okay. But like we should all give ourselves a little bit of credit that, look, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing great. We can all do a little bit better, but you can say that almost about anything.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think I tend to be hard on myself and then I apply that to others. Good. Robert, tell me about you. Where did you grow up?
Well, again, thank you again for having me and like allowing me to kind of like take a break during my day and share a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in Chicago, like Chicago proper. It is home for me, so it's my favorite city. I grew up like in an urban environment, went to public schools as a little kid, inner city. It was tough. It was fun and it was tough.
Nice. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger brothers.
Okay. So
All
you're
boys.
you're the big boy. Oh man, I'm the same. I'm the oldest of three boys.
Yeah, I love my mom. She put through a lot to raise, three boys plus dad, a house of boys. They gotta be tough. I love
Right.
her.
Oh yeah, I know that. I think in our house it was the same. Like my mom was the only woman, and I think she still talks about like how would it be like if there was a girl in the house, in addition to her.
Yeah, my mom still reminds me today.
Nice.
She's waiting for granddaughters.
Yeah. Um, and so you went to school, private school. I'm sorry, public school, and then how did you decide where do you wanted to go for your higher education and make that decision?
Wow, it was honestly speaking, it was like a no-brainer from day one. Like I've loved building things. I love playing with Lego sets. I love playing with blocks when I was really young. I loved like exploring and reading about architecture when I was in elementary school. When I was in high school, there was an architectural drafting track, which is really unique to the high school I went to,
Nice.
uh, Lane Technical High School in Chicago. So like I did a lot of like hand drafting work, mechanical drafting work. I did a lot of like AutoCAD, and that at the time it was like AutoCAD Release 12
Mm-hmm.
work. Did a lot of design. The school competed within the city, so there was like an architectural competition. I placed first place 2 years running
Mm-hmm.
in the city. So it was kind of like a no brainer when I was like trying to figure out what to do for undergrad. And it was like, oh, I'm gonna study architecture. Like I kind of do this really well. I'm winning competitions in high school. I really like the work. I really like being creative. Really like solving problems. Decided to go to University of Illinois Chicago campus. Stay
Okay.
local.
Yeah.
Stayed home. I think classic immigrant lifestyle, right? Like you want to always be close to the family.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed home and went to UIC for a 4 year bachelor's degree in architecture.
Nice. Where are your parents from?
Both my parents are from southern China, so
Oh,
they're
cool.
immigrants here to the United States. They came here looking for a better life. My mom was a stay-at-home mom the whole time. My dad worked as a Chinese chef in a
Mm-hmm.
small restaurant. Um, yeah, they paved the way for me to like have a much better
That's awesome.
lifestyle.
That's what I'm doing for my kids because I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here after going to architecture school in Colombia, and then I moved here, and I'm trying to pave the way for my children now. What do you think is one of the biggest lessons you learned from your parents, knowing that they were going through that experience as immigrants?
Oh, I think every immigrant family goes through this. Like you learn really early that like you have to put in the work. It's
Yep.
always gonna be hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? Like you wake up, you're never gonna have an easy day. It's always gonna be super hard. I was already working in like a Chinese restaurant at the age of like 9, where like just taking orders, being the busboy, like it's tough. And I
Yeah.
think immigrants know that very, very well.
Yep.
That um, it's always gonna be a hard work, and if you put in the work and you're smart, you're gonna eventually get rewarded. But nonetheless, put in the work.
Sure, and I think the other thing I will add to that is that because you do all that work, you put all that effort, you respect the work a lot, and you're very proud of the work that you do because you know how much it takes and how hard it is to get there. So
Yep.
whenever you say something, you do it, and you're very concerned about disappointing somebody and even more disappointing yourself if you don't do what you say you were gonna do.
Yeah. No, I think it's right up there, right? Like the weight of the responsibility is very high.
Yeah.
Like constantly, whenever I did bad in school, my dad would remind me, is like, I struggled to get here.
Hmm.
Uh, he literally crawled and made every single thing possible just to get here to the United States, so that I can have a better life.
Sure.
Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Right? A B or an A- is not acceptable. Like, get back to work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that sounds like the conversations we have at my house. So you go through architecture school, start learning, getting better. What happened there?
I had an amazing time. I think like super lucky, like to be able to be studying architecture, for your bachelor's degree in the city of Chicago is
Oh,
just like
wow.
right, like it's like the mecca of like modernism.
Sure.
There's Mies and Frank Lloyd Wright everywhere. Amazing skyscrapers. It's just a really really great and rich environment to really learn the fundamentals of architecture. I have to give a huge shout out to like my studio professor at the very last year, senior year, last studio. Um, Richard Blunder was my studio professor, and the studio was essentially a to design a market in Mexico City, and it was an international competition. So I think there were like at least a dozen different universities that were competing,
Yep.
and first place prize was a $10,000 traveling fellowship. I'm extraordinarily lucky that like I won first place, and that gave me a
Wow.
ton of opportunities after I graduated uh, to essentially spend the next year after graduation traveling the world.
That's crazy. So tell me about your entry for the competition. What was that like?
Uh, so like the prompt was essentially a market in the middle of Mexico City.
Yeah.
Uh, the competition was sponsored by the Lyceum Fellowship, and they hold this competition every year.
Okay.
And then they select a handful of judges, and like they selected first, second, and third place. First place was a traveling fellowship,
Hmm.
and like super lucky to have placed first place.
That's crazy. What was your design solution?
It was essentially like this urban fabric and aggregated color that like covered the entire market. We needed some type of canopy structure. Like Mexico City gets fairly hot in the summer, and you have a lot of direct sun. But what was really unique about my project was like the fabric up on top was color coded
Yeah.
based on the program underneath.
Oh,
So like
wow.
exactly like green was all like the grocery area, so like all like the top of the fabric matched with the program underneath.
Yeah.
Red was like like cafe and like restaurant. I think yellow was like cultural activity. So it's really designing like the multi-layer. What does the section look like when you cut through the canopy and the program
Hmm.
uh, in Mexico City? It was extraordinarily fun.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. So then you graduate, finish your travel fellowship, and then tell me about your first job.
Uh, so actually, my very first job happened when I was in high school. Super early. I was really young. I must have been maybe only 15, 16 years old. In the middle of high school, if you remember, like I was in this architectural track in high school.
Yeah.
Um, and the very first time I won the city competition, the prize was a internship at a local like participating firm. So my very first job was at Rada Architects.
Wow.
Yeah, they did mostly like school additions and school renovations in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
by the time I did my second internship, like after winning the second time the city competition in high school, I got placed with an amazing firm called Holliburn Root. Holliburn Root's an extraordinarily old firm. If you know, like Soldier Field in Chicago, the really old stadium where the Chicago Bears play,
Mm-hmm.
they were the founding firm that essentially designed that.
Wow.
I got to work on like work in a much bigger company, but also like really exciting like science and technology buildings, stadiums, like schools and institutions. Super phenomenal.
That's exciting. What was the first project that you remember you had a really good participation on?
Oh wow, this was so after I traveled for 1 year around the world. I came back as I wanted to send thank you note to Richard. Like he gave me such an amazing opportunity. He was an amazing professor. I know he also ran a practice, and he essentially gave me a job on the spot. He was like, "Okay, now you're back. What are you gonna do?" I was like, "Well, I don't really know. I guess I need to apply for jobs." So I started working with him, and he ran a firm called Wilkinson Blunder
Mm-hmm.
Architect. The project I remember the most was a project when I was working there. It was called the Daily Method. It was a yoga studio. It's actually very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, there's not that much design. There's a few partitions. All the partitions are glass. There are handrails for yoga and dance studio. Like there's not that much actually in the
Yep.
project. But I remember it so vividly because it was the first project I went from start to finish.
Cool.
It was a great project, like really small in scope,
Yeah.
not much work. But I got to go from really start to finish, from schematic all the way through CA, finish the project. So like it's always going to be etched in my memory as like a very impactful project.
Yeah, that's always good to remember when you have the ability to do that. Not at every farm you have the chance to work from start to finish.
Yeah,
Depending on the farm size, sometimes you do one type of work or the other. But just going through this whole cycle, that's very exciting, and even more exciting now when you're selling and you're trying to get the projects and then take it all the way through CA.
it was really exciting. It was very rare. Like at that point, I've already interned at a number of like different firms. But internships are difficult because you typically only touch like a little bit of a project and you don't ever really get to see like the holistic picture of how a project progresses over time.
Yeah. Tell me about the point where you hit that inflection point, that because you're not an architect, practicing architect today. Um, how did you get to that point where you made the decision to switch lanes and do something else? What prompted that decision? How did you get there?
Yeah. Well, as with any life story, as we've already covered, just like my early life, there's a lot of like moving variables.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. Like it wasn't like one day I just like woke up and said I'm not gonna do architecture anymore. Like that's definitely not my story. My story is much more slow in terms of its transition from architecture traditional practice to what non-traditional practice today. I think what the biggest influence was really like small little steps. Like if I were to like summarize a few of those small steps, was one, I have an amazing experience during my master's degree at the University of Michigan. That played a huge influence in how I look at architecture
Mm-hmm.
and how I look at like the possible variants of architecture. Immediately after school, I started a project called Section Cut, which was like a curated bookmarking tool designed for students specifically to kind of like bookmark and archive all your knowledge after school.
Okay.
Um, and that was like a project I just did nights and weekends. It was fairly simple.
It was
Grew to like
that like a software or what kind of product?
it was a software. Like I was writing code. I was like doing like it's everything was like there was user profiles. Everyone can like log in, create your own bookmarks. You can take like essentially you can have bookmarks wherever you go.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so that was
where did you learn how to code?
I picked it up along the way. It was like a little bit at undergrad, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit during grad school. I did a lot of actually writing, scripting and visual scripting when I was at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
Um, I ended up like my thesis project was essentially like hacking a Microsoft Connect
Mm-hmm.
and using Connect to scan spaces within studios
Oh,
and
wow.
then designing spaces from that. So like I was already like really techie.
Sure.
Um, I ended up staying for one more year and I did an MS degree in digital fabrication and
Yeah.
robotics.
Got it.
So like I was comfortable. I was very
Oh,
comfortable
sure.
with
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. So what happened with Section Cut?
Section Cut grew. Like the community grew to a couple thousand users pretty quickly. And we started designing like workshops from that library, and we're selling that workshop to universities.
Wow.
Which means like so this was like probably one of the hardest parts of my earlier career was I was in practice Monday through Friday, either at SOM Chicago or here in the Bay Area. Either way, I was working Monday through Friday, taking the red eye on a Friday night to go teach a course at Knoxville, Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, like a digital fabrication workshop to teach like CNC, 3D milling,
Yeah.
and 3D scanning. And then I'll take another red eye Sunday night so I can go back to work Monday morning.
Oh my God.
And that was like my life for probably, wow, it probably lasted anywhere between 2 years, I think.
Wow.
Where I did that just nonstop. At some point, I just got really, really tired, right? Like, just it's absolutely not sustainable to be doing like 60-hour weeks at a firm, and then like flying midnight to Tennessee, teaching all day Saturday, Sunday, flying again Sunday night. Like, it was just not sustainable. I think at that point, like, okay, I'm gonna like take a pause on architecture and give section cut a shot. While I was giving section cut a shot to see if it will work full time, I met my two current co-founders now, Alex and Mo. They studied architecture also. They did their masters at MIT. They were classmates. They were roommates. They were best friends. They were like in one U-Haul trucks driving across country to live in San Francisco. So like, when I heard about this, it's like, oh, like when you come and when you land here in San Francisco, we should absolutely grab a beer. Like, I would love to hear their story.
Yeah.
We became like amazing friends literally overnight, and convinced me to essentially partner, and we started an agency. Between the three of us, we were going to start a design agency, and the work that we were going to provide was like websites and apps and design services for technology companies, for software companies. Here in the Bay Area. So we did that for quite some time. We did that for about like 4 years, I think.
Wow. Were you still working as an architect at that time?
No.
So you were working on that full time?
Full time. Yeah.
Okay. I think I heard or saw that product years ago.
Section cut or Dixon and Mo?
I think section cut. It sounds very, very familiar. Was there one that was about websites for architects?
Oh, so that was Monograph. Very like a much earlier version of Monograph.
Yeah, that one I remember. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
so you guys got together. You formed this company. You start working on these projects, and then what happened?
Well, what's really cool is like once we started Dixon Mo, which is the name of the agency, we were like designing websites, we were designing web apps for other people. That's really where like I started to hone in a lot of the business skills.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, now we're a small business owner. We got really familiar with what cash flow looks like. We got really familiar with what a P&L looks like. We got familiarized with like how do you scope contracts, how do you structure payments. What's a better process, and iterated on like well, sometimes some things didn't work out really well and some things turned out really well, and like really kind of use that time in our lives to just get a better understanding what small business mindset looks like.
Yep.
Just like architecture, it's a service-based business model.
Sure.
So like some months we're like really, really busy, a lot of deadlines.
Yeah.
And some months not so much. And during those months, it really gave us an opportunity like, okay, well, if there's not a lot of work this month, what should we be doing? We should really be trying to build an app and solve problems that we care about as prior architects. We should really think about like, what are those problems that we can solve? How do we solve it? What is the philosophy around that product? And that's really where like Monograph began.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
How did you get to the point where you can formulate what that problem was if you were not practicing as an architect and running a firm? How do you know what the problem was and get that information out of your potential clients?
Yeah, like I think the problem never changes, right? Like, and plus, like, it never really goes away. And what I mean is, like, even though like I wasn't practicing as a full-time architect at the time, all my friends were architects. Or like your network, your friends, the people you grew up with, the people you went to school with, they're all still architects.
Yeah.
But there's, of all my friends, there's only like maybe one or two people that are not architects anymore. I just happen to be on that side of the fence. So I'm always surrounded by the problem.
Yes.
And the problem is always the same. It's always like, I don't like have a deadline. I pulled an all-nighter. I don't understand why we had to pull an all-nighter this week, because like if we were doing our job, we should have seen this coming like months ago, not 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Why do we not know why are we always like losing money on projects, and we don't really know that we're losing money on projects until the very end?
Yep.
You should know it like way ahead. Why isn't we using timesheet data a little bit smarter? Why do we have so many different spreadsheets? Why is this work plan so difficult? Right? Like there's all these, constantly at happy hour, hanging out with my friends. The problems are always around me.
Yes.
It was just a matter of time before like I start to put everything together in our heads and be like, we can solve this. Like this is a complicated problem, but not a unsolvable problem.
Sure. And tell me about the solution.
Well, Jack, as you know, like we started Monograph, a time tracking project management tool. So we're really like, what we design and what we develop to market now is essentially a tool to help architects understand the value of time, track that value of time, and measure that value of time. And ideally, if we do all this right, you're going to have way more seamless experience in like managing your work, managing your team. Everything else should become a lot easier. And that's what, that was the goal that we set out to start working on about 3 years ago, almost now.
Yeah.
I'm super proud that we're like, the product is in really great shape today. We help almost 1,000 architects around the world. And there's still a ton of work left. Like I think we're still like a really early stage startup, and there's still a lot of work left and a lot of problems for us to continue to work on. But really excited. This is probably like my mission, personal mission, to keep working on for at least another like couple decades.
Yeah, no, that's exciting, and it's strange that there is no other product similar to that. Because the problem has been there for years. Architects, we have been selling our time since the beginning of time, and technology has been available for many years, and it's been interesting because I think most of the tools that we have might be just simple spreadsheets, and you kind of make it work, or you're combining QuickBooks with something else, and you're trying to patch this thing with this thing, but it's hard to find a specific product to really understand how you use your time as an architect. That is very different than any other professions. I used to work at Gensler. I was there for about 6 years, and that's where I really learned the business of design and the design of business. And one of the things I realized very early on, part of the success of the firm is that understanding of finances, time, and design. That relationship is key. And you can make a lot of money and you can create great design. It's possible, but it requires a system. And within Gensler, they used to have their own programmers, and they design their own software to track things. So I was very used to it's something very user friendly when you track your time, your hours, your billable time against the project. So at any moment in time, you can really see where things are, and you can make adjustments immediately. And when I started my firm 4 years ago, I think part of me wanted to rebel against the system. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do timesheets anymore. I'm my own boss. And I don't want to keep track of hours. So I started working, and years passed, and then realized, like, oh my God, I built all this money, and where is the money? Like, I don't see it. And when I started shopping around for products, I of course run into Monograph. I saw look some of the other products that are out there, some of your competitors. But I think one of the most amazing things from your product, even without using it, is just the way it look. I think design it's at the very core of the company, because just looking at the interface is beautiful. It's really nice. And I think that's very smart from your team and the way you guys approach it, because as designers and architects, we are visual people. We're attracted to aesthetics. We appreciate the value of design, and that right there is a huge step toward engaging your target customer and speaking their own language.
Yep.
I
think that is exactly like where the core value of our company is still today. Like, we have to be design first. We have to like extraordinarily value design, because if we do not, then who are we, right? Like, as a company, as a company founded by 3 architects, we have to put design first.
Sure.
We know design has value.
Yeah.
We know it's hard to measure the value of design.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't do it. Right, like if anything, we should work on it even harder to essentially make that case that design does have value, not just in physical space, but also in digital space, in software, in the experiences that we touch. Really happy that we're not like the forefront leaders of this. Like, Apple's been doing this for a very long time. This is why Apple is such a massive company.
Mm-hmm.
People love Apple because it's a beautiful product.
Sure.
Seamless, and I think now, not just hardware, but like software companies have to really think about that too. Like, you have to design the experience around the product.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to what I named this podcast "The Power of Design," and one of the main things that I look at is that sometimes people confuse design with artistic expression. And they think, I'm not very design oriented, or I'm not a designer, or I'm not an artist, or I'm not creative, because they don't have some ability. But just the fact that you can design with numbers, you can design strategies, you can design solutions, that's also following the design process. And once you identify with that you're a good designer, you can do that, then you start evolving and developing your own style, your own signature solutions. And you create something that is not only beautiful, but it's also functional. Yep. So I know that what you're doing is not something that everyone is doing. You're probably one of few people who take the risk to bet on your ideas and your solutions. What do you think are the key aspects of Robert that makes you good at what you do?
Oh, wow. That's a really, really good question. I think at the end of the day, I have to be really honest. Like, I think there are a lot of people smarter than me. I have to be very fair and very transparent. There's a lot of individuals that are smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of individuals that are better designers, better business people, better humans. I have still a lot of work to continue to improve on myself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I honestly believe, like, I'm very lucky. Like, I think, like, I have a mission. I have a vision of where I see Monograph and where it takes. I have an amazing team that believes in me and supports that mission and will help move the needle so we can accomplish things.
Yeah.
I have an amazing group of investors that have 100% faith in this business and is backing this business. So I think it's, at the end of the day, like, I'm very blessed, very lucky. I surround myself by amazing people. And maybe that's probably the unique ability that I have.
Yeah.
But me on my own, I'm not that special.
What do you think is the future of Monograph in your mind? If you, let's say, Monograph in 10 years, what do you want to see that?
Yeah. There's a word, a terminology that I've been using a little bit more often recently, and it's a system of record. What's really interesting is that we have records for almost everything else in our lives. We have financial records, we have health records, we have records for almost everything, but like the building, like where's the building record?
Mm,
Where's the system of record
yes.
for architecture? Um, I think in the next 10 years, 20 years, I would love Monograph to be that. Like, we are a system of record for all of your work. And we're like a holistic approach to that system of record,
Yeah.
which means we're not just a project management tool for you as an architect,
Hmm.
but holistically for the entire project, which will then include all the stakeholders. It will include like the client. It will include all the consultants.
Yeah.
We all know that like to actually work on a building nowadays and like accomplish a set of drawings, there's a lot of collaboration.
Sure.
If anything, there's more today than there was like 10 years ago. There's more and more consultants.
Yeah.
Um, so like when we're trying to say we really want to solve business problems for architects and really want to solve project management problems, we have to look at the problem holistically.
Correct.
We have to look at the problem like not just the architect. The architect is very important. The architect is the leader of the project, but we cannot forget that like it's a team effort and that there are structural engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, interior designers, landscape, lighting, acoustic, waterproofing,
Yeah.
solar, geothermal. Wow, like the list goes on and on and on, and like we need to involve them in the product because like we're only solving a very small piece of the problem if we don't really think about this holistically.
Yeah. Interesting. I love to use that product.
Hey, 10 years, like you have to give me a little bit of time, right?
Sure. Yeah. I'll wait.
Massive problem, right? Like it's a massive problem to think about. Like, how do you get the whole industry, not just architecture, but like the whole like A&E, architecture engineering industry,
Yeah.
to collaborate and work on one system to generate one system of record for every project. I think that's like a massive vision, extraordinarily hard to achieve, but like very motivating. Because it will streamline so many of these processes.
Yeah.
It will bring everyone, on the same page instantly. It will be an amazing day when we accomplish that.
Oh yeah, that will be amazing. I think there is a parallel approach that eventually will meet you there, and it's all the effort of BIM information modeling for record models, where you can have a building and you can track cut sheets of the systems, products, renovations. You can see it. I think I almost think about, let's say, a 3D model of a city or a town or even of the whole world, where everything is in 3D, but it's a BIM model. You have information attached to it, and it also tracks time on things that have been changing, and you can get exact information in real time.
That's so excited you bring up BIM, building information modeling, and like all the information that's like attached to a model.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this is where like I would love to continue to educate the industry, where like we always think about the work we produce, and that's the design that we put our efforts in. That's the models that we generate in Autodesk. What we always forget is like a lot of our work actually happens on emails, on paper, on communication, right? Like there's a whole another aspect to architecture that like still happens every single day. Monograph really want to try to focus there first. It's like let's really aggregate everything that's not attached to a model. Like let's really like find a system where we can like group all that information, while still allowing like the BIM model exists on the production side.
Yeah.
The way I think about it, right? Like there's for every business, there's like the production, and then there's the productivity. What are you solving for? Are you solving for production side, which is like your Rhino models, your SketchUp models, your Revit, your AutoCAD, or is it productivity, which is like your email, your calendars, your Monograph, your QuickBooks, your accounting, right? Like there's always two sides to those equations. and you have to pick one when you're solving problems.
Yeah, and I think all those tools that just enhance that productivity, that all they're doing is just giving you more time so you can focus on what you do best. Because
Absolutely.
I think we waste millions of professional man hours, looking for information, researching information that should have been there, looking for as-built drawings that nobody has, or redrawing things, which is time that should be spent using our abilities to the best of the use.
Absolutely. If I can save our customers time, at the end of the day, that equates to better design. It creates to like better mental health and personal health wellness to the industry, that there'd be less burnout. And then the end goal is, like, culturally speaking, we get better architecture.
Sure.
Right? Like if everyone has a little bit more time to catch errors and issues and things that like you couldn't catch because you were tired or you didn't have enough time. Ultimately speaking, at the end of the day, we end up with a better built environment, better architecture, better cities, better schools, better hospitals, better homes, better offices.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a young architect who's, working on Revit, doing all these projects, but they have other ideas and they like computers and they have, they may think that there might be another way to make a living, but they're scared because they have a nice paycheck and they enjoy it, but they have this curiosity inside of them. What advice would you give them?
Oh, that's hard. Like, I think a lot of it is contingent on personalities. But at the same time, like I would ask them, like, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Like, if you have other ideas and you don't know yet if you want to make the full leap, you have nights and weekends. You're a young individual. I proved that you can work a lot of hours when you're young.
Oh yeah.
It becomes very hard when you get a little bit older. It's near impossible. And then, like, if you're in a position where you're just not happy, well, stop being unhappy. Like, you only have one life. Like that's something that my father said to me when I was really young. At the end of the day, they came here to give me a better life. It's very important that, like, I take advantage of that opportunity. I make the most of that opportunity, but I need to be happy. But like, if I'm doing everything I'm doing, I'm not happy, then it's for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you only have one life. You don't get to reset on this life. You don't get to start, you don't get a second one.
Yeah.
What I believe too is, if you are able to become an architect, which means you've finished school, you've went to a graduate program, you've done a master's degree, you went through a rigorous series of exams to become a license. It's 99.9%. You are a very smart individual.
Yeah.
You have really, like, not a lot of excuses to not try to live life very happy.
That's right. Awesome.
Like, I see that with my parents, and that's something, like, immigrant parents don't have a lot of those opportunities.
Yeah.
My dad, right, not educated, very low education actually, no real professional skills. Like, you don't have a choice. Like, you're stuck. And, like, I think immigrant families really see that very clearly. Like, my dad did not have any other choice.
Yeah.
But to be a chef and work for very low wages in a kitchen all his life. Very hard work, very laborious, right? Like, very different. I'm fairly educated, multiple degrees, smart individual. If you find yourself in that position, you can take the risk.
Sure, man. I'm sure your parents are very proud of you.
I think they occasionally still wants me to be a doctor, and they have no idea what I'm actually doing during my day.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's a different podcast.
Yeah. Nice. All right, Robert, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and very impressed by what you're doing with Monograph, and inspired to do more things on my own. And I look forward to see your growth and staying in touch.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to just talk a little bit about my life.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank
you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and Osa Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at the Power of Design podcast. Thank you.